I love fun things!
Fillies and Genticles, I welcome you to another edition of Pony Fan Fiction Theater. I'm your host, Nate. I'm going to be your narrator. With me is Kurt and John.
Hello.
No.
And we're going to read this story called Rainbow Dash's Super Fun Adventure in Candyland.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Don't let the name fool you. Although Kurt told me that this is kind of like a grimdark fanfic.
I haven't read it, but
Alright. Anyways, before we start, there's a little disclaimer here. This is Rainbow Dash's Super Fun Adventure in Happy Candyland for right friends, training grounds for theme, right on a My Little Pony fanfiction cliche. Special thanks to Ebon, Maine. Let's begin. There was a knock at the door. Rainbow Dash ignored it. It was probably one of her friends trying to get her to cheer her up again, or to go on an adventure, like they used to back when she could still fly. She was laying on the old futon mattress on the floor of the little cabin that was now her home, her face aimed at the ceiling. She stared at the shine of the long kitchen knife held between her hooves. She waited for a pony at the door to knock again, which they always seemed to do. The second set of knocks came, and she sighed, and she tucked the blade back under the mattress. She righted herself at the edge of the makeshift bed and reached for the tumbler glass on the small table nearby. Tilting it back, she gulped down the remainder of the gin and sour before attempting to stand. All the while, she was desperately wishing it wasn't Pinkie Pie standing behind the door. It was always the worst when she came to visit. There was always lots of balloons and streamers and pastries to accompany the forced smiles and attempts to play games that had lost her fun a long time ago. Out of all of her friends, she was the one who was the most cruel. In all her instances, that everything was still going to be all right. She was the one who had the most hope for a brighter future. Heh, Dash muttered to herself as she shakily moved to the door. Hope. What a cruel prank. Stupid Celestia had to give us, even though we just get thrown down again. She staggered over to the door and rested her head against it. Please, just go away.
Wait.
What?
I'm sorry, one thing.
What?
You said Celestia.
I meant to say Trolestia. Sorry.
What a slip up.
Anyways, please, just go away. Her voice was a whisper that nearly caught in her throat as tears began to well up in her eyes. I don't want to pretend today. Make this stop. Another much louder and heavier knock rattled the door against her head, and she took a step backwards. She felt her teeth begin to grind together in her own accord. After 2 attempts, she managed to grasp the door handle and yank it forcefully open. Scootaloo wore a look of surprise as the door flew open. She quickly tossed aside the rock she held in her hooves and smiled as she tried not to look too guilty of anything. Dash's shoulders fell as she looked down at the brightly smiling orange Pegasus. Oh, hell. What could you possibly want from me? I know I can't teach you anything now. Why do you still keep coming around? She gestured towards the far hillside with a tumbler glass still held in her hoof. Go on, scram! Scootaloo's smile faltered a bit before she answered, Well, it's just that you've been spending so much time inside lately, and I thought that, you would... I would what? Want to go for a walk? Dash lowered her head down to the level of the smaller pony as she stepped closer. Well, yeah, why not? And we can always just hang out, and Scootaloo backed away as Dash's reeking breath hit her nostrils. Hang out? Hang out? Dash followed Scootaloo step by step as the young Pegasus retreated backwards, cringing. Yeah, I just want to go and hang out with an annoying orange bastard filly who has two perfectly good wings but still can't fly, and who I can't stand the sight of. Fun times we'll have then, huh, Scoots? Scootaloo can only stare at the pony who has once had been her idol. She can feel her heart start to sink. As Dash stood up straight now and began to look her up and down with a different expression, Dash got a faraway stare in her eyes, and then suddenly smiled and chuckled a bit to herself. Hey, I'm just kidding, you squirt. How about you come inside and I'll let you in a little fun secret called alcohol. It won't help you fly, but it will make but it will make it so that you won't care about not flying. Here, come on.
Pathetic.
Dash reached to wrap her foreleg around Scootaloo's shoulders, but the younger pony ducked out of the way. Dash's expression was one of honest surprise. She recalled when she was a little filly. She would have jumped at this chance if it had been offered to her. Oh, now what's wrong? You said you wanted to hang out, right? Let's go do some hanging out. Come on. Quit being a chicken. Get over here and drink. She made another staggering swipe for the filly, who easily dodged again and ran around behind her. No, there's something wrong with you. You're drunk and mean now. I don't want to hang out with a dumb loser pony with no wings. Her eyes were
Ultimate diss.
her eyes were clenched tight, nearly dripping with tears, and she shouted to force out the last part of that sentence. She didn't see the tumbler glass that was thrown squarely at her face. She only saw a white flash that immediately turned into red as a spike of pain hammered its way to her skull. Her eyes twisted shut as she fell head over hooves backwards, screeching in pain the whole time. Once she came to a stop, she managed to stumble to her hooves and pry open an eye just enough to make sure she wasn't running towards the attacker. Had she looked behind her, she would have seen the horrified look on her ex-idol's face as she watched the filly screaming and galloping off in no particular direction. The screams faded off into the distance as Rainbow Dash stood in front of her front lawn and listened, teetering like a tall tree in a windstorm. After a moment, she couldn't hear the cries of pain anymore. She walked over to pick up her unshattered drinking glass from the lawn, and then sloppily walked back inside of the one-story cabin on the outskirts of town. Within the hour, it was Twilight Sparkle that stood in her doorstep. Dash looked at her through a drunken haze. Rainbow Dash, let me in. I need to talk to you. Her voice was mostly level, although a bit strained. Shh. What if I say no? You're still gonna... Dash turned and staggered back to her futon, leaving the door open. Twilight peered hesitantly into the gloom before cautiously stepping through the doorway. How can you see in here? Here, let me fix this. She looked toward the nearest window, and her horn began to glow as she focused intently at the shutters. Don't you use your magic in here. If that's what's gonna happen, you can just get the hell out. Dash was sitting on the futon posed to pour herself another glass from the bottle on the nearby table. Twilight's eyes narrowed as she looked towards her friend, but she left the shutters closed. Scootaloo got a bruise not the size of a turtle on top of her head, and I thought you want to know. She said she just ran into a tree on her scooter, but I have my suspicions. Dash let her head lean back as she began to stare at the ceiling again. Hey, don't you let me keep you from suspecting anything you want. Rainbow Dash, this is serious. She could have really been hurt, and it stands now she'll make a full recovery and she'll just be fine physically. But the psychological damage will take a lot longer to heal than just a bruise. You're gonna have to stop drinking and get yourself under control. Drinking is what keeps me under control. It's the only thing I can do to keep sane. Dash's head leaned a bit toward the small kitchenette on the other side of the room. Rainbow, you're obviously having a lot of problems dealing with this. We're all your friends. Why don't you come talk to us? We haven't seen you around, and we're getting really worried that you... Rainbow Dash cut her off with a loud, snorting laugh. Worried? Over what? Over Fluttershy not being able to feel good about giving charity to her wingless gimp friend? Or that you won't be able to use me for a test subject for your failing mechanical experiences anymore? Or that Applejack won't get to have kinky amputee sex? Twilight's eyes shot open wide. Wait, what? You and Apple? Yeah, yes, not a surprise. Well, I guess to any pony who knows what sex is, it wouldn't be a surprise, actually. I sorta didn't mind her using me for that part. Dash took a long, deep drink of her newly refilled glass and allowed herself to ignore the fact that she only just realized her face had gone numb. Rainbow Dash, this has to stop. You can't keep going on like this. You can't let one accident totally end your life like this. Let me snap your horn off, and then tell me you feel the same way. Then I can come over to your house and tell you how you got much to live for. Oh, by the way, what's your cutie mark mean again? I forgot. Could you remind me? The glare she shot at Twilight almost glowed in the darkened room. Twilight just stared. Dash took a drink and leaned back again. 1 minute turned into 2, and then 5, and then the drunken blue pony was nearly off into dreamland where Twilight spoke again. It didn't fail. Dash started awake at the sudden break of silence. What? Rosa? What? What are you? Huh? The experimental medical spell to replace your wings. It didn't fail. What? You mean the one you did back when I was in the hospital? Yeah, it worked, but I must have screwed up the spell a bit, because it didn't work like it was supposed to. Hell, yeah, I'll say. More like it never worked at all. Twilight, I'm the one who's drinking, and I know you're not making sense at all. Dash, listen, it did work, but in a different way than we thought it was going to. Like hell it did. I was supposed to grow my wings back, and you... Replace. It was supposed to replace your wings, not grow them back. Like that makes any bit of difference now. Do I have wings? No, gone, nothing left. See, the doctors even chopped off those bloody stumps. She turned her back toward Twilight and moved close to let her get a good look at the jagged scars along her back. Twilight turned her head away from the embarrassing display. Yes, Dash, I know. I insisted with the magical spell to seal the wound. Oh, and a fine job you did with that. Couldn't even prevent all the ugly marks on my back. She rounded to face the purple unicorn as she spat the accusation. We've been over this. The wounds have already been open for hours when we found you. I couldn't. Twilight stopped and closed her eyes, taking a long deep breath in her mouth and out of her nose. She opened her eyes and continued. I'm trying to tell you that there is another way to get your wings back. Do you want to hear it or not? Dash blinked dumbly through the booze clouding in her brain. Sure.
something tells me this isn't going to be a good idea.
And we'll continue this in another video.